1 minute. Son of a gun.
What are you waiting for?
Waiting for the clock, but I guess we're there.
I see Councilmember Johnson.
By the way, Councilman Johnson online?
Yes.
Okay. With that, let's go ahead and call the Parks and Public Works Committee to order. Staff, please note attendance by the council members and mayor and staff. And we'll proceed on. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Oh, wait, let's back up. Somebody will hopefully, because I'm still waiting for Zoom to come up. Are there any individuals wishing to make comments before the committee not currently on the agenda? Jimmy, if you could tell me if anybody in the audience has their hands up.
They do not.
They do not.
Jimmy, can you promote the city attorney?
With that, we'll move forward from public comments and proceed into the agenda. Let's go ahead into the approval of the minutes for January 4th, 2023. I have no comments or adjustments. Councilor Vincent?
I don't.
Councilor Johnson, are you okay with the minutes as presented?
Yes, I am.
Okay. From there, I guess I would like to at least propose a slight change to the agenda. On advice of Public Works Director, I'd like to bring the RE Plus pledge to the top of the agenda. Are there any objections?
None.
All right. Is this the pledge material here?
Correct. We have Amy Ackerlander from King County Solid Waste online remotely, who's available to answer questions. If you remember at the last council meeting, this was discussed at length, and there was a presentation, PowerPoint presentation. I don't think we need to go through that again. So not sure if there were specific questions or if they just wanted to run it through committee prior to it going to council for approval.
Can you scroll down for the rest of it? I thought there was an opportunity for at least some metrics to see how we as a community were doing on recycling today prior to actions like a pledge or whatnot. So where are we with that engagement?
Amy, would you like to field that one? I haven't been here long enough to,
Yeah, I don't have the specific answers for Snoqualmie, but we are about 60% recycling in King County in general. And this pledge doesn't lock the city into anything, but one of the things we're doing in this process and just started within the last month is developing a city scorecard. So you can see what you're doing, compare yourselves to other cities, and also track progress over time. So this pledge is really separate from the scorecard, and the scorecard is going to give the county and the cities all the information we need to track our progress over time. But signing the pledge is really, these are a lot of high level principles and statements that don't necessarily have direct actions with them. But when the city RE+ grants that are coming out in the second quarter of the year get released, in order to be eligible to apply for that grant funding, cities will have to sign a pledge to be able to be awarded those grants.
So,
Councilor or Mayor?
oops. So I think that the tracking, then it must go through waste management, our group, or how is King County, how would they track it for Snoqualmie?
As far as waste, the county gets reports on waste tonnage, et cetera, and all the waste, all the garbage that goes through Snoqualmie actually goes to our Cedar Hills lane. So we get metrics on that, and I believe that's also reported to the WUTC.
Okay, thank you.
And that's part of our partner in recycle and waste, at least from service wise, is waste management.
Right.
So we do pay a tipping fee for that, which is passed through waste management to us. From there, the connection gets loose to me from us to this pledge. It is
Okay.
But if what you're telling me, I understand your statement before that there are potential grant opportunities, and one of the requirements to be eligible for the grant opportunity is that you have signed up this pledge, which has a lot of well-meaning statements. Global warming is a fact. We ought to work to it and work to mitigate it within our powers. All right.
Yeah, so I can answer a little bit on how that integration happens. So while waste management picks up your waste and you negotiate your franchise agreement and the terms of that agreement with the hauler directly, King County oversees solid waste within King County. King County Solid Waste does. A lot of the policies that are in place for solid waste come directly from the King County Solid Waste Comprehensive Management Plan. And this RePlus program builds on items that already exist within our comprehensive plan, as well as items that have been identified by K4C and in the County Strategic Climate Action Plan. We're finding is that a lot of cities are already doing a lot of this work, which is great. And part of the purpose of this pledge is to acknowledge that we've got a lot of opportunity to work together collaboratively and really start to make an impact towards moving towards that zero waste future. We specifically made it not over binding because we know that there are cities of all different sizes that are different journeys in their climate action and their waste management priorities. But we wanted to make it high level so that it's something that everyone can get behind and everyone can agree with.
Okay. Councilor Benson or Councilman Johnson, do you have any other questions or comments?
I'm going to withhold.
Is the intent to have this on council agenda for next week?
Correct. We will go ahead and pass it on to the next council meeting for authorization for the mayor to sign.
Councilmember Johnson does have his hand raised.
Oh, go ahead, and Councilman Johnson. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I just would wonder what would be a downside of signing onto the pledge. It doesn't seem like it really binds us to too much, and the statements are high level and positive things. So I don't see a reason not to do it. Is where I'm at.
Right. I would agree.
All right. We'll proceed on. I have no further comments.
Thank you
So
very
that'll
much,
progress
Mayor.
on to F&A and have a discussion at 6 o'clock, 6:30.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
All right, back to the agenda. Let's go to Agenda Bill 2303, Water Reclamation Facility for something other.
Oh, you read the same one I did.
Yeah. Like, had to move it.
All right, good evening. I'll try to keep this simple. It's the early procurement of electrical gear. So electrical gear is electrical equipment that controls things like motors, generators. It protects. We know what
uh,
the electricity is, Mr. Pine.
Just trying to make it a little more interesting than the high level. So this agenda bill seeks to approve a purchase order with Control Systems Northwest, also known as CSNW, for electrical gear associated with the water reclamation facility, Phase 3 improvements. The city contracted RH2 Engineering to begin design of the Phase 3 improvements in February of 2022. In May 2022, the city entered an agreement with the Snoqualmie tribe for provisions of added sewer service related to the casino expansion. This agreement included general facility charges, GFCs, as well as a project schedule with milestones to ensure that utility services would be available for the casino soft opening start scheduled for fourth quarter of 2024. In concert with this agreement, the Phase 3 improvements project schedule is planning for startup and commissioning of the improvements for fourth quarter 2024. So currently the Phase 3 improvements are about 60% complete. As part of the 60% effort, RH2 reached out to equipment vendors to determine product availability and estimated lead times. Across the board, equipment lead times is much longer than normal, and motor control centers have the longest lead time estimated at about 70 weeks for delivery following purchase. This long lead time is a result of global supply chain issues that are impacting motor controls, generators, and vehicles the most. So in response to these long lead times, RH2 advanced the 90% electrical design documents and prepared a series of schedule alternatives to look at the best path forward. Those are included in Exhibit 3, but we looked at early procurement bidding with the general contractor. General contractor is going to purchase the equipment. That would be the normal process, but on an aggressive schedule. We also looked at a separate bid just for electrical gear. So we're breaking off that electrical procurement, bidding it sooner. And then we looked at a direct purchase from CSNW, which is a subsidiary, an integrator company that work of RH2. So they have a connection with RH2. And of these three options, the only option that met the schedule, the aggressive schedule we have for that fourth quarter startup, was the third option, purchasing from CSNW. In addition to the schedule benefits, CSNW is an authorized integrator of the equipment by the manufacturer, Rockwell Automation. So with that, they can provide discounted pricing, warranty, insurance, quality control, and startup and commissioning of the equipment. So the purchase order with CSNW would include the procurement and commissioning of the motor control centers. The cost is $620,951, including tax, and there is sufficient appropriation in the biennial budget for this purchase. So, do you have any questions?
Councilman Johnson, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just one thing. Does this expense set us behind at all in the anticipated budget for the project? Or is this something that's kind of within the scope of what was expected originally?
So cost-wise, it's within what was expected. We do a 30% design, a 60% design, and then a 90%, and they also provide cost estimates at each of those milestones. So at 60% design, the electrical cost was $1,045,000 for all the electrical. So we're within that, and there will still be electrical work that the general contractor will do. The motor controls are housed in one building, and then there's going to be equipment out in the field of the treatment plant, and there'll be an electrician and an integrator that will kind of connect the field equipment with the building. Yes.
Sure. But from the way you're characterizing it, sounds like this is the lion's share
of the electrical expense? Or are we thinking that that later is going to be greater than this?
I would say this is the lion's share. Motor control centers are, that's the majority of the work. There is still equipment, mixers, blowers that would not be captured in this, but those have a shorter lead time. So we'd like to go the competitive bidding route for those
But to Councilman
items.
Johnson's
Yeah.
question, we're well within the budget.
Correct. Yeah.
And so you have an aggressive schedule which takes you out to May of 2025 for final completion?
Yes.
What's driving that date?
Yeah. There's 3 schedules. Are you looking at the Schedule C? Let's see.
I'm
That's,
looking at item 2. Option C.
yeah. Joan, if you could scroll down 2 more pages.
I'm driving.
Oh, thank you, Mike. So
Well, let me ask a different way. So what's driving the schedule? And to what date?
what's driving the schedule is the startup. So we want one ditch to be online and functional for a soft startup in fourth quarter 2024. There's 2 ditches that need to be completed. So we'll complete 1 ditch, get it online, and then we'll complete the second ditch once the first ditch is online and started up. That's the most aggressive schedule that we can propose for construction. So that the reason that it goes out beyond that is for retrofitting the second ditch.
All right, so let me, you've got there's some cutoff on option B, but all right, option A has final completion of September of 2025. Option C has completion of May of 2025. Why is September not an acceptable date?
September 2025?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mike, can you scroll over to the left?
We
just
do
a
have
little?
contractual obligations with the tribe.
Bob's got his hand up.
So what's driving the schedule is we have an obligation to have the equipment started up and functional fourth quarter 2024. And that's really the date that we're comparing when we compare these 3 alternatives. And the other alternatives, A and B, do not meet that deadline. I think that they have
Do you wanna take
startup
Bob's
landing
question?
somewhere around
Take a comment.
June 2025.
Bob Sturbank has something to say
Okay.
about it too.
Bob, you have your hand up? Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman?
thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just to be clear, so the council will probably remember the agreement with the Snoqualmie tribe to provide services to the casino expansion and hotel. And because of the complexities with this schedule, the city was not able to agree to a hard start date for service, although under that contract, I think the other party certainly desired that. That said, there is a fair amount of language in the contract about the city making best efforts to have this on a schedule to be able to accommodate a certain amount of limited flow from the startup of the hotel and facilities beginning in fourth quarter, some point in fourth quarter 2024. And that's what Mr. Vining was just talking about. So it's important not to overstate what the contract says, but it's also important for all of us to be mindful of what the target we're shooting for and the impact that it has on the schedule. I think that's what Andrew was just trying to outline. So it's not one where we would say, well, there's a 70 whatever month delay in the chain, and we can accommodate that, no matter what. The preference is to make our best efforts to move faster. And that's how we find ourselves here this evening.
And the project element that meets that requirement is, it's on option C, it's your 60 line 60, where you have at least one ditch up and going, and you've done continuous reactor flow testing and startup?
That's correct, item 60, yep. One item that I didn't mention, but it is in kind of under the schedule evaluation of the agenda bill, is that the motor controls kind of fall on the early stage of construction. We need to have that on site and constructed before we can bring a ditch online. So it's likely that Ecology, to permit the construction, would want to see that equipment is on site, installed, functional before we start taking a portion of the oxidation ditch offline. It's a lower risk approach to the construction.
And option A, okay. Okay. And the cost differential between option A, B, and C? Or what are the costs of, do we have that in here?
Well, we haven't, the cost of A and B would require a bid process, but there is a discussion in the agenda bill about sole source procurement. So the motor control centers are going to be Allen Bradley to match existing equipment at the facility. And there's only one distributor of Allen Bradley on the entire West Coast. So that doesn't provide for a lot of fluctuation in price. The cost of option C is the $620,000, and that includes some labor for commissioning and startup of the equipment.
So there's one distributor. So wouldn't all three options be going to that one distributor?
No, there's typically a pass through. So there's one distributor who then sells it to an integrator who's going to do the startup and commissioning. An integrator is a fancy word for an electrician that does motor controls. And then in the option A, that integrator would then get passed up through the general contractor. So you got probably 2 or 3 layers of markups there, 3 layers of markups. Option B, you'd have 2 layers. You're getting it from the distributor, it gets marked up through the integrator, and then we would purchase that. Option C is the same. So it gets purchased from the distributor. CSNW is the integrator that we are purchasing through. They're a unique integrator because they're a subsidiary of the engineer, and they have a relationship there that allows for a more streamlined submittal process and communication process in the purchasing of the equipment.
That tracks with my understanding. It goes diode, cathode, electrode, overload, integrator, oscillator. So that fits right in there.
Unless you're doing a confabulator. Okay, I still have questions, but all right. You show me option C. I assume we're going option, well, it's a total schedule thing, and usually a schedule, you're buying time. But I have no data on what costs of option A and B are.
Mhm.
Further, I'm concerned option C is a subsidiary or partner of our engineering contractor.
That's correct.
I'm reluctant that we get into a habit where we do that and we haven't got competitive bids. You got no argument for me if you show me the cost differential and say, here, we're doing this because it's cheaper. you'll win me hands down every time you do that, okay? Well, mostly. I still have to adhere to the law of what needs to be competitive bid and how we can sole source and whatnot. Okay. Maybe if you can help me with some of that leading up to council next week, appreciate
Yeah.
that. If nothing else, it's still, 600,000, close to the million mark. I'd like to keep it off consent and put it on regular agenda item.
Yeah.
Thank you, good stuff. Thank you for suffering the questions I have.
No, I thank you. And I would add that it's not the preferred approach. Really, the reason that we're going about this approach is schedule driven. That's the main.
Right, and it was in discussions with the tribe because they were concerned, we were all concerned at that point about the long lead time of these parts. And so it's always been a discussion point with them.
Chair,
Yeah.
Chair.
All right, let's move on to Agenda Bill
Chair, can
23.
I just say one other thing?
Yeah.
Just in support of what you were saying, I think it'd be helpful for us to know what that accelerated schedule costs, because, when we're dealing with the tribe, that if it turns out that, doing it this way costs an extra $250,000 to get the speed, I'm not saying we don't do it because we have obligations to, contractual obligations, but I think it would be good for us to know what those differences in pricing are, to
Yeah,
Councilman
but
Holloway's
Be
point.
careful what also Mr. Sturmey told us. We don't have a hard and fast date with the tribe. We have good faith, best effort to meet fourth quarter. If this had been a $2 million cost differential, we've gone into a wholly different conversation because buying that time becomes very expensive to buy. But this is 600,000. I doubt the cost differential is where I wouldn't say, okay, spend the money by the time.
It's just good data to have.
Yeah. All right. Councilman Johnson, you're okay? I apologize, I can't see online at the moment.
He's smiling.
He's smiling.
Yep. I'm happy.
Let's move on to Agenda Bill 023012, updated lift station and force main improvements. Where did that beast go? You gonna talk this one also?
Yeah, I've got a presentation one. This one might be a little more exciting.
More exciting? I don't want to listen to that song now.
Is it animated?
There is a video. So, all right. So I just want to start with providing an update on the Lift Station 1 Force Main projects, which occurred this fall and is nearly complete. So a quick fun fact, this is it's shown in red is the 1,000-foot pipe that was installed between Lift Station 1 near Railroad Avenue and Kimball Creek Lift Station on the Parkway. On the right there is Rusty, who fused 20 pieces of pipe together to build a 1,000-foot section. Rusty was a city council member in the 1990s and now works for the equipment manufacturer, but he was proud to be involved in the project. Okay, so the purpose of these improvements were to add capacity to the lift station flows as projected through the year 2040 and improve the resilience of the lift station by adding a second force main. Early on in the project, we looked at 3 different alternatives, which are shown there on the right, and the direct route using directional bore methods shown in the orange was the most cost effective. Okay, so construction started with a careful process of drilling a path for the pipe and then pulling the 1,000-foot pipeline from Lift Station 1 to Kimball Creek Lift Station on the Parkway. And the contractor provided a 1-minute video of the project, which I'd like to share. Sure if I can get sound.
Takes 3 minutes to load.
Let's see. I'm gonna play it without sound. Is that all right? If that's all right. Oh, never mind. It's not.
Might have to do a new share.
Okay.
Or it's a YouTube link and you could send it to us and we could torture our significant others.
Another fun fact on this project, the technology used during the drilling of the pipe was the technology that was invented by the model railroad project.
Peter Hamling.
So,
That actually is a fun fact.
isn't it?
That is a fun one.
Okay, I'm done stalling for you, Andrew. Get it going.
And it's going right underneath that site.
There, yes, there you go.
A little choppy. Apologies. Not the best calling. There is a link in the agenda, Bill, if you'd like to view it on your own.
Oh, cool.
Cool. You start over.
Okay.
Is that the ink here over there?
Okay, but specifically to this agenda, Bill, it's a rounded up $25,000 adjustment to RH2 statement of work here, primarily driven by, we had a pump failure.
Yes, yeah, so there are two things, the generator and the pump failure. On the bottom right shows the pump, which essentially consumed its own cables due to a mechanism failure in the lift station, unrelated to construction, but our consultant was familiar with the lift station and helped out with providing a temporary pump, sizing a temporary pump, and providing some additional analysis on the pump that was there. Took about 2 months for us to repair, but it is back and installed. So there's some additional consultant work related to supporting that effort. And then in the bottom center, that's the generator, which is upstairs in that lift station, and that generator has failed, and we need to replace it. We've got a temporary generator that we're renting out there, and RH2 has provided some services to get the new one designed and purchased, and we'd like to have them involved in the startup and commissioning of the new generator. We ordered it about 16 months ago, and it's supposed to arrive later this month. So the lead time is very long on this equipment. We did the install, we tying into the new pipe. It's no service interruptions. That was a big effort, and the original scope of work was completed within the contract. Overall, the project went really well. I was really impressed by the drilling company, and they were very calculated in their approach to the project. It's pretty exciting to see 1,000 feet of pipe pulled in one day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big day. And with that, if you have any questions.
So it wasn't the construction company's fault that any of this stuff happened? It's just stuff that happened?
That's correct,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
It was the pump failure was a failure of it's called a Kellen grip, which holds the cables from falling into the station. They got corroded, the cables fell down and got sucked into the pump.
Did we mess up as a city in not catching that that was going to fail?
We have a lot of those, you know, every lift station has them. Our operations staff could probably speak more to that, but I think that it's a reminder to those little types of pieces of equipment need to be maintained and checked.
Has that been addressed?
As we're building out the Tyler program, which will begin at the end of this year, we'll be placing in mandatory inspection tasks, and that will be one of the mandatory inspection tasks to check out on those. Currently, we're analog, so we ask people to do it, and there's paper trails. But when Tyler comes online for us, it will be part of an electronic tracking and verification system to make sure that those are being inspected.
That sounds like a much better system.
We also recently had some changes in wastewater staff. One of our wastewater staff that supported the lift station operations no longer works at the city, so there's some transition of information there. We actually was going to planning to have that staff member install the new generator, but he's no longer here to do that, so we're looking at having a contractor in coordination with RH2 install it and start it up.
And we'll talk about staff later in the agenda.
Councilman Johnson, any questions on your behalf?
No, the questions I had have just been asked.
Okay. I've got no further issue with this.
Consent?
Consent.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if this one can move forward as consent, that'd be fantastic. Thank you very much for the explanation.
Thank you.
And that was a really good presentation, by the way. So.
All right, so let's move on then to discussions, recycling, waste management conversation. I think we kind of, if we've got information back from waste management on conservation and recycling, can we just put that to the communications team and get that out into the community as?
Yes, if I can just show real quick, this is our website, obviously. If you go to services and come down here to garbage, recycle, and yard waste, you'll see some headings there. You can even jump more specific to that. But our communications, come on, computer. Our communications team already has it in place. If you click the next link, it takes you right to waste management specific. And as it says right there in the center of the screen, this website is your #1 resource for information. So there's a lot of good information. There's posters you can print out and put near your cans, etc. I sent an email out to a few of you showing, different things that are available. So yes, we are pushing this out. And instead of pushing it out and then forgetting about it, I've already talked with Dana about having it, we'll do 4 pushes a year. So each quarter we'll make a push on this during that quarter, just to remind folks and capture our new residents.
Cool, okay. Thank you. We already did the RE pledge. Let's director's report, staffing and project status.
Yeah, so staffing wise, we'll start with wastewater. Wastewater is down to about 50% of the staffing level. We have a ton of vacancies over there. And as you can see, when you have that many vacancies, all the work isn't getting done. The guys are doing everything they can. They're working mandatory overtime. They're keeping it going. But we are focused on getting those positions filled this fiscal year, so that we can get caught up and take care of things the way they should be. The other department that's suffering is water. Our water division's down to 4 employees. They're down 3, so they're a little better than 50%. But those also are critical people that we need to exercise fire hydrants to respond to emergencies like we had at 2 o'clock this morning when we had a main water line break. Folks are getting tired over there, so we really need to work hard to fill those positions, and we are making changes in order to do that. And I'll be able to report more on those later. They're in the works now, so it's inappropriate for me to talk about it right now. Yes, sir.
Are these highly skilled positions, or are they positions that could be filled by somebody looking for a job?
Okay, we'll talk about it now.
Oh,
So,
sorry.
in the past, the job descriptions kind of put us in a catch-22 position where we can only hire people at a certain skill level. There was no program to develop employees through the different skill levels that are needed. So as part of the budget, and we've been working in my department with HR department, we've built a whole new series of job descriptions that we're going through the process of the meet and confer process to create that ladder framework so we can develop those skills and we can hire entry-level people and develop those skills. Both the managers' positions in water and sewer are finally filled. Water was vacant for a while. And both managers are absolutely on board and behind this. So we're meeting in the meet and confer process. So as soon as that's complete, then we'll be able to move on. I can tell you that I believe that communications and HR already has a schedule to go make a presentation at the high school on Career Day to discuss exciting new opportunities at the city of Snoqualmie.
That's great.
Okay. More on staffing. In your budget, you approved standing up a new division, the Stormwater and Urban Forestry Division. Phil was applied and was selected to be the new supervisor of that division. Very recently, Jason Battles was selected to be the senior in that division. And then Kevin Halbert moved over. We had 2 employees that were 50% streets and 50% storms. So now Kevin Halbert's 100% storm and Tim Barrett is 100% streets. So we also have 2 vacancies there that we need to fill, and we will begin working on those shortly. I'm trying not to overload our robust HR department by hitting them with a ton of recruitments all at once. So I'm very grateful for the work we're doing, and we're working through it, and we have a plan. So the goal is by April 1st to have those positions filled and good to go. The Parks Department is fully staffed. The Engineering Division is fully staffed. The Fleet Department is fully staffed. Those divisions are operating well. So where we need the help, where we really need the focus is on those utility positions. Several times we've thought we've hired people and they left within a month or 2 due to higher paying jobs, very, very local. So I realize and I wouldn't advocate that we try to compete. You know, we need to find the right person for the job, but a lot of hope is being placed on the salary survey that's under work to maybe get us a little closer so it's not so tempting. And then if you'd like to, any questions on staffing, or do you want to?
With regard to the other positions that you're talking about, are you looking at a scaffolded sort of approach to those as well, or are those other positions not the sorts of things where you could hire somebody entry level and work them up?
No. Well, yes and no. So my first 4 months I spent redoing the job descriptions and generating 65 job descriptions, placing ladders in each field so that there is a logical development step in fleet, in parks, in storm, in water, and in sewer. The stormwaters have been through the meet and confer process, and those are okay. I think half of the parks have been through the meet and confer process. Something else has been through. I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but we're going through it, and it was a collaborative process when we developed those job descriptions. I involved the team members and got their input, and I think we really have a product that will move us forward.
Councilmember Johnson, do you have any questions?
Not right now.
Okay, and then I actually have a presentation for projects that's not going to be as exciting as Andrew's.
How could it?
No
Come
video?
on.
No video.
Don't hold yourself to impossible standards.
Next meeting, we're
Would you
going to
win
have the
award for
exciting.
density of.
So wanted it to be a complete report. The Williams Addition water main, we are looking at starting construction May 8th this year. It's currently out to receive the bids. So you'll be seeing that over the next couple of months come through to get lined up to make that replacement. That's where the water line broke this morning at 2 a.m. and we had 8 people in mud up to their necks, for hours in the pouring rain and cold and stuff. The 384th Avenue sewer main replacement corridor redevelopment designs well underway with 50% plans expected within the next month. And then we'll begin the process of permit submittals. Plan is for everything to go smoothly and us to start construction this fall. If permits take longer than anticipated, which is a possibility, considering the fact we're trying to install a sidewalk next to some floodplains. The project may slip till 2024, but it is underway and we are doing our best to get it going. The 2023 sidewalk programs is going to be kicked off shortly. It will be a much smaller scope than last year because we knocked so much out last year. And what is driving that and what I would direct folks to is the complaint form on the website. So probably have another 2 weeks to get reports in before we need to lock it off for this year. And then those incoming will probably slip till next year. We'll probably be able to work 1 or 2 of the more serious ones in because we'll have some buffer that we put in there. But we really encourage people to get their reports in sooner rather than later. The City Hall stairs are on track to be repaired and repainted in April, May, weather permitting. That's something that needs to happen in good weather. The ADA transition plan, the consultants will be out soon, measuring all the crosswalk ramps and to develop the report over the next few months. That's throughout the city. It's one of the requirements is that we have a transition plan for the whole city to get under, to continue to receive WSDOT funding and other funding sources. The water reclamation phase 3, Andrew's project, we're advancing towards 90% of the design completion, and then permitting will occur in spring and bidding will occur in summer.
Councilmember Johnson has a question.
Councilor Johnson, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering if there's any plan within the next couple of days to send out a blast on social media to get any reports on sidewalk improvements.
I will request for that to happen first thing in the morning.
Thanks.
The lift station 1 improvements is wrapping up. We're 90% complete. And then the remaining mainly is down to the generator, right? And yeah. Then there's Eagle Lake Water Reclamation Basin improvements, and the project has kicked off. And then we're working on a draft engineering report for June to ecology. And then the 2023 street tree improvements project, Andrew's working with Phil on this to secure a consultant with project scoping for Automav is what we're planning. I'll be bringing an item probably second meeting in February to discuss the storm damage. We have a considerable amount of storm damage to our urban forest, and we may want to piggyback that on with this project to do some of those repairs as we're doing this project so we get the best price. So we'll discuss that here in a couple meetings.
Anybody want to understand what happens when you shallow plant a tree? Needs to look at some of the trees that have gone down. It's pancake. It pulls up a.
Yeah, we have considerable sidewalk damage also that we'll be discussing. Transportation projects, Hind put together an update. So our recommendation is that we focus on 2 roads currently, and both of those roads are roads that are tourists heavily traffic. One is Stone Quarry Road. Obviously, that's the road that the Railroad Museum's on. A lot of guests to our community use this road, and currently the PCI is 45. It's bad. So we're looking at a 2.5-inch overlay on that section of road that is within the city limits, from the highway all the way to the city limits. And the cost of that treatment's coming in at around $360,000. We would do both lanes, both sides of the road. And then the other section that we're looking to focus on is Mill Pond Road from 202 to Toffel. We will only be able to afford to get about half of that section done. So we will start at Meadowbrook and work our way towards the Public Works Yard and get that first half, which is really bad, done, where the trees really have it busted up, et cetera. The current PCI of that section is 41. And the cost of of the whole road is $1 million. We don't have that. We only have about 300,000. I have been talking with Drew about the possibility of maybe combining years in the CIP to get the best price, because we're only paying mobilization once. And so we're looking at the financial implications of maybe doing a little more this year to get the biggest bang for our buck. So more meetings will occur, and then we'll bring it forward.
What was your initial scope, you said?
We have 600,000 each year for 2 years.
Geographic wise, what part of the road are you looking at?
Oh, we're going to start at Meadowbrook, and then we'll wind up just past Morse Lake, because that's the worst section,
Also, that other section up there, pretty close to.
the project. And we're kind of want to wait till the project does what they're going to do before we put new payment
Put it
down.
down and they rip it up. That's just
Correct.
counterproductive. All right.
Correct. We're tracking. And then we have the Parkway project.
Joe's got his hand.
Oh, sorry.
Councilman Johnson, you have a question?
I believe that you just asked it. I just want to make sure about the upcoming project with the mill site and the realignment. Is that what you're just talking about?
Yeah, we shouldn't do an overlay.
Yeah.
So we know their schedule and what we're doing.
Right.
Right.
There's
Okay.
potholes we'll
Great.
repair over there, but that's it.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And then we have the Parkway rehabilitation, which is an overlay that we're planning for this upcoming construction. Currently, the plans are at 60%. Estimated payment cost is a little over $5 million. And then we have estimated ADA improvements on top of that. There's a typo there. I think it's about 1.3 million. We're still forming that all up. And then we are going to get this out to bid in March. So you'll be seeing more of this in upcoming meetings.
How much of that 5 is state to us?
5,
Full 5?
full 5.
So it needs to be 80% of the cost. So if you're adding the ADA to it, I think it's based on like 6.4 million, so we're good.
Yeah. And then Centennial Park, the accessible playground. The bid package will be complete in a few days, end of the month. And then construction is planned to begin on June 1st. And just a reminder, that is the playground that's going to be going in out there. It does have a fence around it because of the location to the parking lot. It's a little too close to the parking lot. And then we have Riverview Park. That is the playground that's going to be going in out there. And that construction, the demolition is going to begin on February 20th. There will be a tree taken down prior to that. There's a diseased cherry tree in there that we need to get out. So that'll be coming down in-house. We'll be doing that work prior to February 20th. And then the playground installation and hardscape is expected to be complete by April 20th. And then at that point, we're looking for a good weather window so we can do the port-in-place safety servicing, because you can't do that in wet weather. So it's very temperature and moisture dependent. So we are expecting to have that in place by June 1st, and then we can have a ribbon cutting and get the kids out there on the playground.
Councilmember Christensen.
Councilperson Christensen.
Hey, I just had a quick question. For Riverview Park, I believe that when we'd spoken previously, there had been discussions about saving the structure that's currently located there and moving it to a different playground. Are you still considering doing that?
Correct. There's a few parts on it that will need to be replaced. Actually, it's not Riverview Playground that we're looking to save. It's Centennials.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Riverview's a little too far gone.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much.
And yes, that is still the plan. And then there are more projects coming. We discussed one in Peck yesterday, and we'll be discussing that at the next meeting. And that will be a splash pad for Community Park.
Very exciting.
That sounds good.
Johnson, any additional questions?
Yeah, one with regard to the ADA work and the Snoqualmie Parkway. I would just wonder if staff has considered the concept of bulb outs, which can be added to intersections to reduce how far it is someone has to walk, especially to help people who have disabilities, but also it can provide traffic calming. A specific spot that I was thinking about, actually two of them, are at the intersection with Swenson and at the intersection with Douglas and maybe even with Center, where there have been council members in the past who have brought up concerns with how fast people drive through there. And bulb outs can be sort of a thing that just says, hey, drivers, people walk here and cross the street here. And again, they do help out people with disabilities. So I'm just curious if staff has looked into that at all.
There's a yes and no. So there's a lot of things in flux right now with the Parkway. We have a meeting tomorrow, which is about the jurisdiction transfer. So we need to get some of that stuff nailed down before we know exactly, where it's going to be. We can look at that on the side streets. I would not recommend putting bulb outs out into the Parkway. The Parkway is constructed to a level, and changing that would be a significant effort to effectively rebuild the entire Parkway to accommodate bulb outs. It's designed for too high of a speed to accommodate anything going out into that right-of-way traffic, but it is possible on some of the side streets when you pull off the Parkway and you're supposed to be going slower to accommodate it. And I kind of think that Center Street has them a little bit now, doesn't it? I don't think they're very large, but I think it's offset a little bit.
Or it has indented parking.
There's
depending how you
recessed
look at
parking,
it.
Yeah.
Less parking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so whether or not we can enlarge those or make them bigger, I don't know. We can look at all that once we get a little further down the road with the discussions with the state.
All right, we're good with that?
Yep.
All right, in that case, we have reached the end of our agenda. Are there any pop-up items for discussion, or we're good?
We're good. I lost the agenda, sorry.
I have it here.
Sounds like Mr. Chambliss has adjourned us.
All right, so unless there are objections, we will adjourn. Hearing no objections, we are adjourned. Thank you all this evening.
Good night.
Please beware for FNA. I believe Councilmember Mayhew will not be in attendance, and I will be chairing FNA.